By no means I'm a professional and I'm not gonna know the name to every single tool, but in this video, hopefully I can share with you what tools to buy like name brand and what tools to buy like Harbor Freight brands. For the majority, you don't need really good tools. You can get by with the very basic middle class tier tools. The cars I've worked on in the past, I had a 67 Mercury Cougar. It's a V8, worked on that. After that, I think I had a Blazer, never really worked on that thing. Then I got a Miata, worked on the Miata, did suspension stuff on it. Then after the Miata, I got a 240. I probably got like another 10 240s after that. Did SR swaps, KAT turbos, right-hand drive conversions, changed subframes, suspension, coilovers, 5-lug conversions, this typical stuff, and changing dashes, bondoing primer, all that good stuff. Then after that, I got the Evo 10, and then after that, I got the Miata again, and after the Miata, I got the Tacoma. So that's basically what I've been into. And I also worked for a little bit at Midas, and I was actually gonna go to school to become a mechanic, but soon, right away, I learned that working on minivans is not a fun thing to do. So real quick, I'm gonna show you my toolbox. It's a Harbor Freight special. I don't think they sell this one anymore, but let me show it to you guys. So I've had this one for a while. I don't know the name of this model, but these usually go for about 200 bucks. They still have some. You can actually change the colors. I really like the one that's like that Porsche lime green color, kind of like the tuning technology sticker right here. But anyways, cool little toolbox. You can lock it, keep honest people away from stealing stuff, but it rolls the whole deal. You can close that. I did this little modification. I got one of these suction cups for my phone because what I do is I listen to music and then I pair it with my Bluetooth speaker thing, which is pretty awesome. I highly recommend it. Cool little toolbox. It's a good starter. I already outgrown it. I'm gonna be upgrading pretty soon. You could, carry I keep my millimeter on this side, my American stuff on this side. A lot of tools on the floor because I was filming, but you can fit tools in there, So yeah, pretty much that's it. So I digress. So we're gonna get into the first set of tools that I have here. We're gonna get in with the sockets. I apologize if I don't know the exact name or the use of the certain tools. I'm not a professional by any means. I'm just a guy that's a weekend warrior and wrenches on his cars and knows enough to get hurt. So we're gonna get into sockets. There's gonna be a few things I wanna get into. The first thing being said is there's two types of sockets that you're gonna use. Either if you're going with American car or you're going with Japanese car. If you're going with Japanese car, it's gonna be millimeter. So let me do a close-up of what a millimeter looks like. This is a millimeter setup right here. It'll be a 12 millimeter. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's a 12 millimeter. Anything that's millimeter is gonna be a Japanese vehicle. So that's gonna be your Nissans, your Toyotas, Hondas, Acuras, all those kind of cars. Now, if you're working on an American car, like a Ford or something like that, you're gonna use, not this one, you're gonna use this one right here, which is called SAE set. So basically you're gonna be working with fractions. So you're gonna have the half inch is like a 12-inch millimeter, but it's just a little off. Don't use these tools that are not for that head bolt size because you're gonna strip it. In a pinch, once in a while, I'll use, like, if I don't have anything else and it's a very light torque, you'll get away with it. When it's high torque, you're just gonna strip the bolt, so don't even do that. Now we separated that. Now the second thing is when you look at these tools, I'm gonna grab what is this, a 15? This is a 6-point right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a 6-point socket. And then I'm gonna grab a 15 12-point socket. 9 out of 10 times, the 6-point socket is the best. Stay away from the 12-point sockets. The 12-point sockets have a place out in the mechanical world, but highly, like, I can live without these tools. The only reason I have them is just because when I need it, I'm gonna need it one day. Honestly, I probably use this set maybe twice. You're gonna find a 12-point head bolt to be on like header bolts and stuff like that and some aftermarket parts, but like 99.8 times you're gonna be using a 6-point. So this one, don't even worry about getting them. I wouldn't invest in these unless you have that extra money to spend on them. Get yourself a set. They have a deep socket and short sockets on that set, but stay with the 6-point. 6 points are the best. All right, now the second thing you need to know about actual sockets is there's different sizes on the back part, which means when you get like a wrench or the ratchet, the small one, which you're going to use for most of the jobs for low torque, like 150 pound torque or lower, is going to be a 3/8, which is the most common. There's a smaller tier. I forgot the size of that one, but I rarely use it. I think it's a 1/2 inch. I'm not too sure. No, this is a 1/2 inch. What am I talking about? So this is 3/8. There's a smaller one than that one. I never use. I don't recommend it. And then this one's for like when you're torquing like motor bolts and stuff that takes a lot of torque. You can use a 1/2 inch drive. So the back part here is called the drive. This is a 3/8 and this is a 1/2 inch drive. I recommend to buying both. The reason why this one's black, real quick, I don't know if you guys can see, the reason why this one's black is because this one's for an impact tool. I use it with the wrench, a regular ratcheting wrench. It works for me. It was just cheaper to buy this set, but this is for high impact and high torque stuff. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Those are the two different things. Usually you want to get a set. The set will pretty much get you by. The set will come with probably 10 inch all the way to a 21 inch set. And then for the SAE, for the American stuff, you'll get like a 3/8 to 13/16, and that'll pretty much get you by. And you don't have to buy all these tools at once, but I just recommend over the time, you'll accumulate, as you get into projects, you'll accumulate tools. And this has been a process in like 10 years that I've accumulated these tools. I didn't just go and buy them all one day. You don't need that many tools to build a car, to be honest with you. So yeah, just that being said. Now the second thing I want to talk about sockets, because this is the socket segment. This one right here is called a flip socket. I didn't know this socket existed until I worked at Midas when I was changing tires. A flip socket is basically the lug nut size. So this one on this side is going to be, I don't know exactly which one's which, but you have 3/16 and 7/8. So you can flip it and you can still use the smaller one, or you could flip it and use the bigger one. That's a really cool socket. It's called a flip socket. I don't know if that's the professional term for it, but that's what I know is that to be called out in the automotive world. Flip sockets. These are awesome. Now the second kind of socket that I want to get into, this is for spark plugs. It's a spark plug socket. The only difference from this socket is that it has a different like build here. I really don't know what this is for. I guess you could, in a tight spot, you can wrench it with a wrench. But inside, it's hard to see, but inside there's a little rubber grommet. So when you're going down on the cylinder head and you're going up, it'll hold onto the spark plug when you pull it off. Because if you just use a regular socket, there's no little rubber gizmo in there to pull it out for you. Now I do have a trick for that, which is this rubber hose. It's just a regular fuel hose that I use, and you can literally just pick the spark plug and it'll fit basically in this little hole right here, in this little hole. The spark plug will fit in there and you can pull it out of the valve cover out of the valve cover. And real quick, before we move on, I forgot to mention on the sockets, you want to go middle tier and up. You can get away with Harbor Freight, but if you can afford to get like Craftsman, something a little bit better, it's a lot better. Duralast works. I consider Duralast and Craftsman in the same middle class. Then you got your Snap-on, Macco, and all that stuff. If you can afford that, go for it. But I've gotten away with this. Just don't get like super cheap stuff. Like China stuff, they'll break very easy. All right, let's move on. All right, so the next subject we're gonna get into is gonna be a 3-part subject: extensions, ratchets, and swivels. Because I believe all 3 of them go hand in hand. All right, so we're gonna talk about these sets here. When it comes to ratchets, I think you can get away with middle of the tier. Like I have Pittsburgh here. Pittsburgh is Harbor Freight's brand, and they've worked pretty well for me. I also have a Craftsman that's probably been with me for 10 years plus, and I even have this cheapo, which I don't even know what the heck it is, Ultra Last. This thing's been with me for a long time and it has never broken, and I use this thing all the time. You can get middle of the class tier on this stuff. So like we talked before, we have 2 different sets. We're gonna have the 1/2 inch and we're gonna have the 3/8. And I'll do a close up so you can see. 3/8 is what you're mostly gonna use all the time, but when you're doing high torque stuff, you're gonna be using this cat right here. And Like I said, this stuff you can get middle of the class. If you can afford the better stuff, go for it. But I've gotten away with Harbor Freight stuff. Also with the extensions, you're gonna have the 3/8, or this is actually a 1/2 inch. So with the extensions, you're gonna have the 1/2 inch. Get yourself always like 3, because you can build on these, make them really long, and you can get a tranny, you can get a transmission from all the way from the back of the bell housing and reach. That's what I always have this for. Then I also have a 3 set of the 3/8, which are smaller, and you can always add these. These are all Craftsman, so I feel like with extensions, you want to get like middle. With extensions, you want to get middle of the tier or up. Don't get the cheap stuff, because I've literally twisted these things off. Craftsman and above. This is a Duralast. The Duralast is the same quality as a Craftsman. So yeah, so you want to get yourself a long one, get yourself a 3, and then always get yourself a little stubby. The stubby will come in pretty common. And when it comes to sockets and wrenches and ratchets and all that, you always want to get yourself, the 1/2 inch and the 3/8. Those are like the basic ones you're going to use all the time. Okay, so now let's move on to the swivels. What's a swivel? So swivels it's a dangerous game, but it has saved me so many times. So I have a 1/2 inch size swivel. I have a Craftsman and a Husky, and then this one's all taped up, but this is a 3/8 one. The reason you tape them up is so they're a little more stiffer, because sometimes you're trying to get in a tight spot and it's just like the socket will go down and it's just a pain in the butt. This is a cool little trick and tip. But usually they look like this. If I swivel it, you see that it'll start to drop. With some weight on it, it'll start to drop. I'll show you right here. So if you're trying to fish something and it just drops, you see that? Now, when you have the little thingy, right now it's kind of broken, but trust me, it'll stay a little stiffer once it's not broken. With the swivels, you want to go middle of the class and above. You don't want to cheap out on this stuff, because I've blown these and they'll break very, very easy. I don't recommend you use these with the impact gun, but if you have to, you're most likely probably going to break it. So yeah, that pretty much breaks it down. And then I'll show you real quick the different setups. So this is the 1/2 inch. I'll put a socket in here. That's the 1/2 inch. This is good for torque. And then this is the 3/8, which is, you probably use this one 80% of the time. This is for like low torque stuff, like removing seats, door panels, or fenders or stuff. This big setup right here is mostly for suspension, engine parts, when you're gonna break something with a lot of torque. And then I'm gonna give you guys a bonus tool. Let me go ahead and find it. This. Every car guy must have their ultimate breaker bar. I have these breaker bars right here. These are cool and all, but they don't ratchet, which kind of sucks. Like they're kind of just stuck in one position. So that's like last resort. I try to stay away from that. This is awesome. This basically came off an aluminum jack. Very light aluminum, has a big hole, so you can do this. So basically you put this in here. Now you have a ratcheting breaker bar. It's awesome, trust me. This thing has saved me countless of times. I've had friends that have stolen this from me, and I've had to fetch it back because they just love the way this concept works. So if you're a true car guy, you need to get yourself a breaker bar. And you can't buy this, like go find a metal pipe, whatever. As long as it's big enough here to fit it, and it's a little long, not too long, like this is the perfect size. This is about 2 feet long, perfect size. So we're gonna go ahead and move on with the next thing. So the next topic is gonna be breaker bars for sockets. So all breaker bars are mostly gonna be 1/2 inch. I think 3/8 kind of defeats the purpose. I'm not too big of a fan of these because they're kind of a pain in the butt when you're trying to ratchet something. They kind of get stuck, and usually you're working on the floor and you don't have a jack. This thing will be hitting, hitting something while you're trying to go down. You got to adjust it. It's going to be too high. It's going to be hitting the fender. So it's kind of a pain in the ass. That's why that trick I showed you with the breaker bar is a lot better. But sometimes you need some real power. There's been times where I do a combo. I'll show you guys. I'll literally get this and this together. Now it's like a super combo breaker bar. I've done this. Trust me, I've done it, and it works. Try to stay away from these, but always get yourself a good set. I would get middle class stuff of this. You don't want to get too cheap. So I have a Duralast, and a Craftsman, and then this one's like a badass snap-on. This is like a legit, this is probably like the only snap-on tool I have. I don't know, this must have been handed down from my my wife's dad or something. This is a good tool. But I rarely use them, but it's a good tool to have on your set. And if you're gonna buy it, don't buy the cheap stuff. Get middle or above. All right, let's move on to the next topic. The next segment is gonna be screwdrivers, Phillip heads, and pry bars. So that's gonna be that next topic. So let's start with the cheap stuff that I have that you can get away with, and we'll go down the list. So basically I have this Harbor Freight set, which I think you get for free when you spend a certain amount of money. It comes with 2 Phillips, you know, it has a long one, a little shorter one with a different little diameter. It's always good to get a certain set. You got the, that's a Phillips, and these are flatheads. Flatheads you don't use too much in the car industry, only to like really pry stuff. And here's a little stubby Phillips right here. I'll show you a higher quality one. This is an electrical tool by Klein. Klein Tools does a lot of electrical stuff. I do HVAC, so I have this tool. This is probably the best screwdriver in the world, I think. It's like about 30 bucks. In the automotive world, you only use these 2 flip sockets. So it has a flip socket. It'll have a, you know, a little thicker one. I don't know the gauges of them, but it says right here. So this thin one's a pH1 and there's a pH2. And then if you flip it this way, it has a flathead and a flathead on that side, which is pretty nice. If you can buy this is cool, but don't get me wrong, I use this more than I use this, and I get by with the Harbor Freight. I think this is like 2 bucks at Harbor Freight. Another tool that I purchased that I didn't think I was going to use at all was these picks from Pittsburgh. This is another Harbor Freight special. It has a bunch of different little picks that you can use to remove gaskets and little stuff, and I always use this. I never thought I would use it. I just bought it one day. I said, oh, this will come in handy. I'm surprised how many times I use this set right here. I'm so surprised. This is a good buy. These 2 are a good buy at Harbor Freight. You cannot go wrong with these. This right here is less than 5 bucks. This is another thing from Harbor Freight you cannot go wrong with. I think this was like 6 bucks, 10 bucks max. You use this for suspension a lot. When you're prying suspension out of a spot, a must-have. Pry bar. Get one. This is like a middle size. There's a smaller one and a bigger one. You just need one size. I think the middle one pretty much has got me by. The next thing we're going to talk about, I don't know the name of this tool, but I think it's called a door panel remover. So you can jam this in door panels and pop off those little pesky clips. And here's a little close-up. It's like a kind of like a fork. If you're in a pinch, you can use forks, like kitchen utensils, like the bigger ones. And I did that on my Miata video, and you guys kind of like that. But this is a door panel remover. And the only reason I know this tool exists because my cousin does auto glass, and they use this in their industry. This is like their flashlight, what it is to me for HVAC on air conditioning. A flashlight is very important. This is like very important to them. They call it in Spanish, I think they call it cuerdo de chivo or something like that. I don't know, but, or the goat foot. It looks like a goat foot kind of. I think that's what they call it, the goat foot in the price. This is a really awesome tool. I rarely use it, but when you need this tool, you need it. You can buy a cheap one. The next screwdriver, the Phillips. This is like, I don't know the name of this tool. I wish you guys can comment down below. I'll do a close-up. It's a really thick Phillips. And I always use this for interior, always. It's always an interior Phillips. So when there's plastic screws in an interior, like a radio or something, it's this size. Please comment down below. I love this tool. This is a Duralast or a Great Neck. I bought it at AutoZone. I don't know why I bought it, but I bought it. This tool is one of my favorite tools of all time for interior screwdrivers or interior Phillip heads. The best. I highly recommend you buy one of these. I just don't know the name of it, but just look at it, it's thick. And I know someone will comment down below what size, what this is actually called. The best screwdriver I had. Then I have, which I call, my friends gave me these names, we call them Excaliburs. They're just long Phillips. I'll do a close-up. A Phillips and a flathead, very long. So you can get those like when you're doing an SR swap, and these have been around with me for like 10 years. When you're doing an SR swap and then you have a US chassis, you have to reroute the hoses in the back and you have to put little clamps. These are nice to get in the back and behind the head, really nice. Love these tools. Get yourself a set of these. These are Craftsman. You get by with Harbor Freight specials. This is not too crazy. So All right, let's move on to the next segment. So the next topic we're gonna get into is wrenches and ratcheting wrenches. When these come out, I don't know, every time I'm not happy when these come out. I hate using wrenches so bad because I call them knuckle busters. You'll be on a screw or a bolt, you're trying to take it off and then this side won't fit and you're doing this thing and then bam, you hit yourself against the suspension and you got a knuckle buster. I hate this tool, but in the automotive world, get used to this. You use these all the time. This is a standard in our industry or a standard in the automotive industry. You're gonna need these. There's a few sets and a few different ones. I'll get into it right now. My favorite out of all of them are the ratcheting. These are Pittsburghs. I was very skeptical on buying these because there's bearings and little clickers on it and it can break. You do not, with these ratcheting setups right here, you don't break bolts. I do it all the time though. I'm guilty. I break bolts with this. You're not supposed to because you can break it. They haven't broke yet. I don't do crazy. I think suspension is like the only heavy duty stuff I break on it. These are awesome. I highly recommend. I was skeptical. I've had them for like 5 years. They have not broken down yet. These are about probably 50 bucks at AutoZone for the set. I'm sorry. They're about 50 bucks at Harbor Freight. They've been lasting really well. You're gonna start to realize that all my tools are pretty much Harbor Freight. It's a Harbor Freight sponsored video. No, I'm just kidding. It's not sponsored. You need these tools all the time. I highly recommend that you pick them up. If you can pick up yourself a ratcheting set, I recommend both, a ratcheting set and just a regular one. I have millimeter for Japanese cars. I usually into Japanese cars, so I use millimeter regularly. I rarely buy American cars, but I do have the SAE standard, which are the fractions, the 1/2 inch, 5/16, whatever, the whole deal, or 9/16, I'm sorry. But yeah, get yourself this set. When these come out, I'm not happy. They're knuckle busters. All right, let's move on to the next subject. All right, we're gonna get into our next topic. This topic here is gonna be an oddball set of tools. But these are the oddball tools that I have in my toolbox. I'm gonna break it down why they become handy to me. All right, so we'll start with the basic scissors. These are Harbor Freights. You get these for free when you spend money, or they're like about $1. You always need to cut stuff. I really don't know what this is for. I always, like, in my mind, it's like to crack like peanuts or something. But anyways, that's a good tool to have, very cheap, very affordable. Let's move on to, I guess we'll start from this side, this way. These guys right here are to remove C-clips. So like if you have a 240, if you ever done like remove the shifter, there's this little C-clip that sits at the shifter and you get this guy and push it. Usually you're using needle nose and struggling. This is the actual tool. You can buy, this is a Harbor Freight special right here. Very cheap, works great, and you can convert it to go the opposite way. And then this is like a real brand one that belongs to my cousin. I never gave it back to him. I hope he's not watching this video. All right, we'll move on to the next thing. These guys, I know this is weird to have this here, but whenever you strip a bolt, the head of a bolt, these are your go-tos. Whenever you need to hold something in a certain position or you just can't grip anything, these are my go-tos. These are pretty nice. You can, open them up. What are these called? I don't even know. Vice grips, I'm assuming. I don't know what this tool's called. Please comment down below. I feel kind of dumb. I know it's gonna be something simple, but these are clutch when you ever strip something or need to clamp something down really strong, because you can just, make the gap. Let me show you. Make the gap smaller. You can just make the gap smaller by turning this cat. And then once it clamps on, and then it just really grabs on. This is a really nice tool. One of my favorite tools when I'm in a pinch. But when you're pulling this out, you're not having a good day. All right, the next tool we're gonna go with, this is a very common tool if you do oil changes. So this is to remove oil filters. So you can adjust this, it collapses. This is not the best tool in the world. I don't like these, but I bought it because it's very universal and I'm always changing cars and I hate buying this, and I'll get into it in a bit. I prefer this one better, but this one's specific to the size of your oil filter. So you have to, like, if you have 3 different cars, you're gonna probably need 3 different ones because these change in size. But these basically bolt on the top and you can put a 3/8 extension with the ratchet, and this works a lot better. This, you're kind of struggling, but it's a universal size, so this one tool of this fits all. That's the benefit. So I have both. I think this was from my Evo. I have that one left over. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next one. These two are electrical tools right here. This is a strip, this strip stuff. This strips wires, and this is a needle nose to get like very tight spots and remove electrical components and stuff like that. I rarely use these tools, but you need them, so have them in your tool set. On these tools, especially the one that strips the insulation on a wire, I highly recommend, highly, not this one, highly recommend this to be Klein. This is high performance stuff right here. Klein is all electrical tools. This is the best out there in my opinion. For the bang of your buck. These are about, and any Klein tool you can buy at Home Depot pretty much. This is probably 20 bucks, 15 bucks, good tool. Needle nose is a Harbor Freight. There's a Harbor Freight needle nose, but get yourself this one. This one could be a cheap one, doesn't matter. You're gonna use this to like pick up little things and pry stuff. Yeah. So we have these actual, they're not sockets, they're Allens. I can't take it off, it's such a pain in the butt. But basically you can put a ratchet on this and you can high torque. These are usually for header bolts and stuff like that. Then I also have myself a set of Allens. I rarely use these, but it's good to have a set. You can get some Harbor Freight specials. Doesn't have to be anything special there. This next set here, these are the same thing. These are coilover tools that I got with my BC coilovers. This is what you use to break those lugs when you want to change the height of your actual coilover. You don't have to go and buy these. When you get coilovers, just save them, don't toss them, don't give them to the guy you sell your car to, keep them because they're gonna come handy one day. Because I think I've stripped one before, or I stripped something. But anyways, these are coilover wrenches. And then the last Oddball tool, and this is a tool that you just collect as you go. This is like for aftermarket wheels, you need to have a special lug nut, and this is the tool for it. It just fits on that groove perfectly. Don't get rid of these, save these. These will come in handy all the time. Because you can, who knows, one day you might buy a car that has special lug nuts. The guy didn't give you this. How are you gonna take this off? I can show you a trick, but I'm kind of scared if you guys gonna start stealing some wheels. But there's a trick out there on how to not use this. Shit, I'll tell you. So what you do is you sacrifice a socket that's a 6-point, and then you get a smaller size than the actual lug nut, and then hammer it in with the hammer. You're gonna sacrifice it, but that's the way you do it. But you're gonna need a lot of them to do it. So that's only if you're in a pinch. All right, let's move on to the next topic. All right, so the next topic we're gonna talk about are hammers. Yes, you're gonna use hammers when it comes to the automotive world. The first one we're gonna talk about is a mallet. It's a rubber mallet, it's rubber. This is good when you wanna take something out, but you don't wanna damage the metal. This is very awesome. The second thing you wanna have is a roofing hammer. I know like this is for roofs, not how you're using this in automotive. There's probably a tool for this, but this has worked for me. Very narrow to get in tight spots. I highly don't recommend to use this because it doesn't really have that much power behind it, but I have it. I recommend to get one. Now this thing's my favorite hammer of all time. I didn't even know this thing existed till just one day magically ended up in my toolbox. I don't know, like after a couple years, you just have tools. I think my friends left it behind or something, but thank you for leaving this behind. This is the best tool I've ever had in my life. So basically this is, I call this the Thor hammer. I don't know exactly what it is, but this aluminum gives, or it's not aluminum, I don't know what kind of metal it is, but it gives. So when you're hammering stuff and you don't want to dent your car, whatever it is, like suspension A-arms, this thing takes the abuse and it has like power behind it. Please comment down below. I would love to know what the heck this hammer is and what is this made out of. All right, let's move on to the next subject. So the next topic is gonna be to get yourself measuring tape, because sometimes you need to measure some certain stuff. Just get yourself a basic Harbor Freight one, a cheapy one, doesn't really matter. Get yourself middle tier, don't get expensive on this. You're gonna need to measure some stuff sometimes. And like I said, you're gonna accumulate this. You're not gonna get this overnight, so yeah. This is a Harbor Freight special. These are like about $3, $2. So next topic is gonna be jack stands and a jack. These are Harbor Freight jack stands that I bought on sale, I think for 40 bucks. These are a plus. I recommend you get 4 of them because when you're working on your car, safety's first and you want to make sure that the car is not going to drop on you. And then the second thing I'll talk about is the floor jack. And this thing's kind of heavy, so I'm gonna kind of lift it. It's an aluminum floor jack that I bought at Harbor Freight. This one's really good for low cars because it has very low profile. I love this tool. You're gonna definitely need this. That's probably like, if I would have to put a 1 through 10, 10 being like the most important, this is number 10. You're gonna need a jack and a good one and a low profile if you're into like slamming your car and stuff. Most people are, I am. Those are very important to get these two things for safety, the floor jack and these jack stands. You can buy those at Harbor Freight for relatively cheap. I think these, like I said, these jack stands, you can wait to go on sale, 50, 40 bucks. And then the floor jack is about 160 bucks, I think it is, but it's really good. So that pretty much wraps this segment on my tool set. If you guys have any questions, please leave comments down below. And if on those tools that I didn't know the name of them, please leave comments down below because I would love to know. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. I'll catch you on the next one.